USDA logo, United States Department of Agriculture.
Hi guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jamie Flood. I'm the Wikipedian resident at the National Agricultural Library, and I'm also a member of the Ag Partnership Team. And today we're going to be hosting an Edit-a-Thon around the Food Safety Modernization Act. And here's our director, Paul Wester.
Good morning, everyone, and happy National Agricultural Day. Hello and welcome to our Food Safety Modernization Act Wikipedia Edit-a-Thon. I'm glad you can join us today. As Jamie said, I'm Paul Wester. I'm the director of the National Agricultural Library here in Beltsville, Maryland. The functions of the National Agricultural Library were established on May 15, 1862 by Congress and President Abraham Lincoln with the creation of the United States Department of Agriculture. Today, the National Agricultural Library is one of 5 national libraries in the United States and holds one of the largest food and agriculture collections and related sciences collections in the world. NAL serves scientists and investigators, USDA departmental administration and staff, as well as academic researchers and the general public here in the US and around the world. The library facilitates the creation of agricultural knowledge through the acquisition, curation, and dissemination of the information needed to solve agricultural challenges today and in the future. The Agricultural Law Information Partnership of the National Agricultural Library has organized today's Edit-a-Thon. Special thanks goes to Kirsten Nelson, NAL's Agricultural Law Librarian and the lead for the Agricultural Law Information Partnership at NAL. So thank you very much, Kirsten, for getting this organized today. The Agricultural Law Information Partnership represents a collaboration between the National Agricultural Library, the National Agricultural Law Center, and the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems at the Vermont Law School. Agricultural-related issues are increasingly complex, and the impact of these legal issues continue to broaden in scope in the United States and around the world. The Agricultural Law Information Partnership connects consumers, legal professionals, and producers with the agricultural and food law information that they need to succeed. Today's Edit-a-Thon will focus on food safety and the Food Safety Modernization Act, also called FSMA. In 2011, Congress enacted FSMA to address a public health concern by reviewing and updating federal food safety laws. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, approximately 48 million people get sick and 3,000 die each year in the US from preventable foodborne illnesses. Rather than a system that responds to foodborne illnesses, the Food Safety Modernization Act works to prevent them. Our agricultural law partners who are joining us today will introduce valuable food safety resources that are available to farmers, food producers, and customers in just a moment. First, I want to say a few words on the value of this Edit-a-Thon and how you will be contributing to the distribution of food safety knowledge today. Wikipedia is among the top 10 most visited sites daily and serves as the first step for many researchers, often as a quick jumping off point to additional resources on the internet. Across all language editions, Wikipedia is accessed by over 1 billion unique visitors each month. Today's Edit-a-Thon is a valuable opportunity to share the content created by our ag law partners. Our colleagues at the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems at the Vermont Law School created the Extension Legal Services Initiative to address farmers and food producers' legal questions about food safety compliance. At the National Agricultural Law Center, they maintain a reading room on food safety that includes statutes, regulations, and articles. By sharing this information through Wikipedia, we can help ensure that the public finds quality, accurate information about food safety, especially for audiences that may not be aware of or be comfortable with legal websites. Wikipedia relies on volunteer editors and programs like this Edit-a-Thon to ensure that reliable information is being disseminated, articles are improved, and gaps in knowledge and information are filled. Over the past 3 years, thanks to the leadership of Jill Riley, NAL's Associate Director for Information Products, the National Agricultural Library has hosted Edit-a-Thons related to a number of different issues, including U.S. Agricultural History in partnership with the National Archives and Records Administration, the history of the Agricultural Research Service, the National Ag Library itself, and USDA history, USDA Women in Science, and a virtual series on general agricultural topics. With our Wikipedian in residence, Jamie Flood, who you met earlier, who also deserves a huge thank you and a huge shout out from all of us here today. We've increased accurate agricultural information on Wikipedia, updated articles about laws and regulations, and highlighted the National Agricultural Library and USDA projects and people. We've added resources from the National Ag Library's special collections, including images, articles, and bulletins. We've also worked directly with USDA scientists like Dr. Gary Kennard to revamp agriculture-related content, like his material related to the National Plant Germplasm System, one of the great contributions to agricultural and food sciences and frankly, world history. In just a moment, we will hear from our two agricultural law partners, Lori Bayrunavan, Director of the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems at the Vermont Law School, and Harrison Pittman, the Director of the National Agricultural Law Center. We will also hear from Dr. Dewana James Holly with the Food Safety Research Information Office at NAL, and Dr. James A. Lindsay, the Senior National Program Leader for Food Safety at the USDA's Agricultural Research Service. Dr. Lindsay oversees and coordinates Agricultural Research Service, or ARS, food safety research projects. He's an international expert in food safety and advises organizations around the world on their food safety and food safety research programs. We're really pleased to have Dr. James Holly and Dr. Lindsay here with us today. Shortly after 11 a.m. Eastern Time today, Jamie and Ariel Citrone of the Wikimedia DC will host a Wikipedia training. This training will be useful to users of all experience levels and give a good overview of how you can contribute today. We will begin editing around 12 noon Eastern with a short break around 1 for lunch, and will continue until about 3 this afternoon. Jamie, Ariel, and other experienced Wikipedians will be available for assistance throughout the day, and our speakers will also be available for subject-specific questions and answers. I'll also note that while we hope that you'll join us for the full day's events, you should feel free to come and go as you please. This pandemic is really hard on all of us, and we can't sit here all day long. Again, welcome to everyone, and I'm excited to see that all the great Wikipedia edits that you all will make today. So let me turn it over to Lori, who will carry on from here. She's the Director of the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems at the Vermont Law School. So take it away, Lori.
Thanks so much, Paul. And thank you all for inviting us and for hosting this Wikipedia Edit-a-Thon. I've never done anything like this, so I'm really excited to see how it all unfolds. So as Paul mentioned, I am a professor at Vermont Law School and also the director of the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems. Next slide, please. So I'm going to share with you some resources that we've developed in the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems related to the Food Safety Modernization Act. One of the things that we heard pretty consistently was that extension agents and other people that are visiting farms often were receiving questions about FSMA. And while they felt really qualified to answer the technical questions, there were points at which the questions seemed to get into legal gray areas, which extension agents obviously didn't feel comfortable answering. So in partnership with the extension program at UVM and the Northeast Center to Advance Food Safety, we developed the Extension Legal Services Initiative, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Next slide, please.
Hold, please, having technical difficulties. Real quick, if you don't mind, Lori, let me share something real quick.
Sure.
We just want to let everyone know that the guest speakers portion of our event will be recorded. The recording will show the full screen slides only. We will have the participants minimized. Please feel free to have your camera off, and you can set it on for your meeting name. And I think you can even take your whole name off, period, if you want to. We will be editing out the question and answer portion, so it'll just be the speakers. And back to you.
Thanks, Jamie. So our mission at the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems, we're in a law school, obviously. So a big piece of our mission is to train law and policy students. We have both JD students who are getting their law degree, and we have master's students who are getting a degree in law and policy. So a big piece of what we do is to train students in food systems, law, and policy. We also develop tools and resources for food and agricultural stakeholders across the country. So working with those stakeholder groups as partners, we lend law and policy expertise to help support a more sustainable, just, and equitable food system. And our students are invaluable in helping us to accomplish this. Next slide, please.
Give me a second. Sorry. There we
No,
go.
that's fine. So if you go visit our website, we have a number of different projects that we work on, and I just included a screenshot here of some of the types of projects that we work on, but I couldn't take a big enough screenshot to show you all of them. But here are a few other examples of projects that we've worked on. Blueprint for a National Food Strategy, our Healthy Food Policy Project, which is a database of local laws and policies to promote access to healthy food. And then our Farm to Institution Policy Project, which focuses on procurement and farm to institution policies across the New England region. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the Extension Legal Services Initiative arose out of these questions and concerns that we heard from extension agents and others who deal with farmers regularly. And questions that people had, initially that's how it started. It sort of morphed into serving a greater population of people, but the initial concern was basically that there were a ton of questions about FSMA. There's still a ton of questions about FSMA. And that there were some questions that really involved resolving legal ambiguities or gray areas. So we, and I give a lot of credit and kudos to Sophia Kruszewski, who leads our food and agriculture clinic and also is our resident FSMA expert for leading this project in the clinic. We also had students in the clinic work on developing these resources over a period of years. So the project was essentially a partnership with UVM Extension's Northeast Center to advance food safety. We developed an advisory council to help basically take a bunch of questions, narrow them down to the ones that seem most pressing. And then those questions were answered by our students in very long legal memos that then got condensed into the resources that I'll show you in a few minutes. And this project, I think, it's not one of, I don't know if students come to law school thinking like, oh, I need to learn about food safety, or I'm desperate to learn about food safety. But food safety is one of those things that there are not a lot of people that are trained in FSMA yet from law school. And it's a really invaluable resource for students to get some training in FSMA and to really sort of dig into the statute and the regulations to answer some of these questions. Next slide. So one of the resources that's on this on the website, on the LC, we refer to the Extension Legal Services Initiative as our LC project, but one of the resources that's included on this site is the Produce Safety Rule Implementation Map. So that gives you a sense of different states and how they've established produce safety programs that have been suited to the individual needs in that particular state. It's important to note with FSMA that the regulatory and enforcement approach, because a lot of that's happening at the state level, it varies by state. So this map is a really useful way to sort of see what's going on in different states. Next slide, please. The next resource that we have available is produce safety rule coverage and exemptions for farms with multiple business entities. One of the big questions with FSMA is what does it mean to be a farm? Some of that gets even more complicated when you have separate legal business entities for different aspects of the farm's operation, and how that may or may not affect the farm's eligibility for an exemption under the produce safety rule. So this resource helps to answer some of those specific questions. Next slide, please. The next resource is a fact sheet that's focused on FSMA supply chain requirements for processors and produce suppliers. So for some facilities that have a supply chain program in place, the fact sheet describes steps that they have to take to approve produce farms as suppliers, and then also talks about alternative options that might be available to processors that are sourcing from exempt and qualified exempt farms, and from qualified farm mix type facilities. As you can tell, if a lot of this sounds like, oh my goodness, what is she even talking about? These resources help to explain some of these terms and what all of these terms mean. FSMA is an incredibly complicated statute. It has an incredibly complicated set of regulations. So the goal of these fact sheets is to dive into some really specific questions, but also to give background and overview. Next slide, please. One of the other questions that we got is about using the Technical Assistance Network from FDA and using FOIA to access information about FSMA. So the Technical Assistance Network at FDA is available if people have questions about FSMA, but the answers to those questions are not necessarily publicly available. So this particular resource addresses whether you could use the Freedom of Information Act for entities to request access to some of that information that might not otherwise be publicly available. Next slide, please. And then another resource that we have is understanding the relationship between FDA rules, guidance, and other types of communications. FDA issues a lot of different types of documents, and those have various legal effect. So this document essentially helps to describe what does it mean for something to be a regulation? What does it mean for the regulation to potentially have guidance that goes along with it? What's the difference between a regulation and guidance? And then there's a lot of other types of communications that FDA puts out, like memos, Q&As, and what's the significance of those, and how well are people able to rely on those as a source of information for compliance. Next slide, please. And then another obvious question is about liability. So producers have had questions about their liability if a foodborne illness happens to be traced back to their produce operation. And this deals with that question and whether or not a producer might face civil or criminal liability, even if they didn't know that the produce was contaminated, or even if they're covered by the produce safety rule. One of the misconceptions that we heard a lot is if I'm in compliance with the produce safety rule, doesn't that mean then that I might be exempt from liability if somebody gets sick? And so this fact sheet addresses those issues and questions. Next slide, please. So then another question that we heard a lot about was produce growers asking about the difference between a produce audit and a produce safety rule inspection, and specifically any legal protections or obligations that might arise if someone is found out of compliance during a FSMA PSR inspection, or if they fail to meet the audit's criteria. So this helps to distinguish between audits and inspections, and then talks about how those might impact a producer's liability. Next slide, please. And then This is an interesting one. I know we had a student that worked really hard on this and then wrote a subsequent law review article, given the complexity of this issue. So the produce safety rule allows for alternatives and variances to regulatory standards under certain circumstances. So this helps to lay out what the burden might be for somebody to be able to meet those particular standards. Next slide, please. And that is the gist of our resources. We expect that there may be additional resources that get developed and posted onto that site. We hope that you all find them useful. Here is a link to our website, also an email address if you'd like to contact us, and then our social media. Thank you so much. Do I pass it to Harrison?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks, Lori. And
Sure.
now we'll be hearing from Harrison of the National Agricultural Law Center.
And I know Laurie was asking for the slides to be changed. Do I need to do that, or do I change them myself? Or?
I'll change them for you.
Okay, that works for me. So I'm Harrison Pittman. I serve as director of the National Agricultural Law Center, and I want to say thanks to everybody for being here, and for the National Agricultural Library for being a great partner and for helping put this on today, or putting this on and letting us come in and help out. The National Agricultural Law Center serves as the nation's leading source for agricultural and food law research and information. So the nature of what we do is that we provide objective research and information to the nation's agricultural community. And the issues that we deal with are basically sort of all the above. It's everything that you can think of that plays out in the legal space in agricultural and food law. Of course, we have partners that assist us in a lot of these efforts. But routinely, we work with producers of all commodities, of all sizes, all over the country, from row crop production, specialty crop, organics, people who may be more engaged in direct marketing, farmers markets, direct to institution type transactions. We work with policymakers at the federal level and at the state level on an ongoing basis. And that would often include state ag departments, trade groups, commodity groups of all kinds that, while, we don't advocate, we're not an entity that engages in advocacy. We are an entity that works with oftentimes people who advocate on different parts of the spectrum and come from it from many different points of views. And so we've been in place since 1987 and as I've said, served the nation's agricultural community during that time. I mentioned, but I'll highlight because I think it's a really important part of knowing what we do and how it might be of help to you today in this activity. We are an objective resource and we are a nonpartisan resource. So, we're kind of even beyond saying we're bipartisan. We're just a nonpartisan entity. We work with, people all over the political spectrum and all different aspects of agriculture. And we provide information dealing with laws and regulations that affect agriculture. So that's kind of the big picture. Within the university system, we are a component of the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. We're a standalone unit. And so think of your basically, every university system is structured in its own way, a lot of similarities, but many differences. And for us, we're in the component of the university system that is agricultural research and extension, but we work with others on an ongoing basis, both here in our system and elsewhere around the country in terms of academics and others. Next slide, please. So what you see here, this is an image of our homepage. Of course, it'll look a little differently when you pull it up live, but www.national aglawcenter.org. And when you go there, you'll find a tremendous number of resources. And of course, I'm going to drill down on food safety. There's also a food labeling component, but food safety is what we'll focus on. If you go through the left-hand column and you pull that up, research by topic is one of the most important areas that I can tell you about today. And there's 2 or 3 others that I'll quickly mention. When you go to research by topic, each one of those is a reading room. So you can see an example of the topics there. We have about 50, probably a little bit more than 50. Food safety is one of those. And in each one of those reading rooms, what you'll find is an overview article. I think that will be immensely helpful to you, particularly coupled with the resources that Laurie just highlighted. The overview article is written, as all of these are in our reading rooms, to be useful to experts and non-experts. As I mentioned a moment ago, our stakeholder base is much, much, much broader than attorneys. That is a key part of the audience that we serve, but it's not exclusive. We work, as I've mentioned, a lot with all other aspects of agriculture and the food industry that really would fall in the category of non-attorneys. But the overview article, I think, will be very, very helpful to you. It'll provide kind of a basics of the issue, in this instance, FSMA, background on some of the key litigation, regulatory activities, key legal issues that have occurred and are ongoing. You'll also find the links to major statutes. And for example, you can see highlighted there the Food Safety Modernization Act. Beneath that, regulations. And then for this, you'll find a lot of your directives from FDA, bulletins, guidance documents, and the like that would be very important to you. I would highlight to you within the both within the reading room and then accessing from the homepage. It's 2 ways of getting there, and it should be the same articles, but the Center Research Publications would be very helpful to you. The Congressional Research Service reports. This is very, very important, very helpful resource. For years, and been a recent change because the Library of Congress changed its policies on publishing CRS reports. But for years, we maintained a database, a very user-friendly database of all ag and food law related Congressional Research Service reports. Now CRS does that, but we've kept that library. And so we have a lot of those research service reports that are really easy to find, already indexed and go straight to the report. But by going to that page, you can also find newer CRS reports that have been issued. And there haven't been as many in recent years. That's why I wanted to make sure I highlighted that. There were a lot more activity as you get closer to the enactment of FSMA in 2011. The Ag Law Bibliography. This is a bibliography of ag and food related resources that really dates back to the 1940s and 50s. We update this quarterly. It's organized into a few dozen categories and subcategories. Of course, food is part of that, and I think you would find some very useful resources there. And then within each reading room, there'll be links at the very bottom of the page for other reference resources, other government resources that would be also very useful to link back to. So I stress to you the substance of what I've mentioned, but I'll emphasize everything's linked to. So you can, it's kind of gold for a Wikipedia-thon in finding resources and references that you want to link back to guide the reader in their further research. I think I'll pause there. I think I'm kind of at my limit on time. I don't even know if I have another slide, to be honest with you. I think that may be the last slide. So I'll pause there and hand it back over.
Yeah, this was your last one. I tried to forward it and you moved beyond yours.
The PowerPoint slides were for you guys' protection.
Oh, okay.
Keep me from talking too much, so I whittled it down to 5.
Well, thank you very much, Harrison. We appreciate your time. Really thankful that you were able to join us today.
Glad to do it.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Dewana James Hawley, and she'll be talking to us about the Food Safety Information Office at NAL.
Thank you, Jamie. I hope that you all can hear me. But again, thank you for the introduction. Today, I'm going to reintroduce the Food Safety Research Information Office. And I'd like to talk about how we are expanding the support of FSMA implementation through our resources. Next slide. I'm hopeful that all of you will have the opportunity to learn about the FSRIO mission, our key information products, and all of our web pages. Next slide. Before doing so, I want to give a little understanding and a little history about the implementation of FSMA and how it connects to our work at USDA NAL. So I'll start in fiscal year 2015. I was a part of the implementation strategy that was created between USDA NIFA and FDA CIFSAN. The two agencies partnered to establish an infrastructure that would support the implementation of FSMA. This infrastructure included one national coordination center, which was designed to coordinate communication across all entities, those that are government and the regional centers as well. They also worked to assess the needs of the regions and its partners. There were also 4 regional centers that were established as a part of this infrastructure, and these are strategically placed in the 4 regions throughout the country. The first one is in the Northeast, is at the University of Vermont. You heard from them earlier. Oregon State University, Iowa State University, and the University of Florida. There were also 2 FDA cooperative agreements that were established as a part of this infrastructure. These were with the Small Farmers Union and the Indigenous Food and Agricultural Initiative. And so collectively, this was considered the national infrastructure. So in addition to the training strategy, the training plan was established through targeted curricula. That curricula was created by 3 alliances, the Produce Safety Alliance, the Food Safety Preventive Controls Alliance, and the Sprout Safety Alliance. There was also work done with the NASDA organization, which stands for the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, and the FDA Technical Assistance Network. You also heard about that earlier. So the USDA team focused on FSMA implementation priorities that were specific to training and technical assistance. The focus was also to leverage partnerships at the local and regional levels, and to ensure that there was maximum reach to the target audience. The target audience was mandated by the FSMA legislation. This included our owners and operators of small and medium-sized farms, beginning farmers, socially disadvantaged farmers, small processors, and small fresh and fruit and vegetable merchant wholesalers. And so the language and a lot of the reach that you may see in historical documents speak to those particular groups. So at USDA NAL, we continue to leverage FSMA technical assistance through the information products at the Food Safety Research Information Office. This began as early as 1998, which was a part of the ARERA legislation. As you can tell, this is well before the FSMA regulation, and we continue to leverage resources in this way. Next slide. I'm sorry, stay here. You can stay here, thanks. Our office became official in 2001, and our mission is to support the needs of the research community to prevent the unintended duplication of food safety research, and to also assess food safety research needs and priorities for our partners. We do serve a target audience of food scientists, but we provide them with quick access to grants and active projects, peer refereed publications, and our scientific presentations or videos. Next slide. I'd like to dive a little closer into discussing some of the key information products that we have with the Food Safety Research Information Office. And I'll start with the Research Projects Database. This is a compilation of over 16,000 food safety research projects, which continues to grow as we continue to get new research, new research is shared with us. But these are resources that are funded by US and international agencies and some of our private organization, private partners. The second resource is a research publications feed. This allows you to have access to over 200 digital peer refereed food safety or food science journals. A lot of the articles are ahead of print within this database. And then we have the Meet the Experts information product. It allows us to showcase our USDA scientists, our federal scientists in action in the laboratory and their affiliates who are presenting food safety research. That information is shared through Microsoft PowerPoint presentations and/or videos. Next slide. In addition to those three key information products, we also have current event tabs for scientists. These food safety news tabs go directly to the About FSRIO webpage, and they are updated during different intervals on a routine basis. They also include a What's New tab. This includes anything new that we've done to the website, just to keep our audience aware of any changes that are happening or things that we want them to pay attention to. It also includes featured content that is shared across GovDelivery. This year, we added a funding source announcement tab about various grant opportunities, and you'll see that there's a tab for that. Next slide. There's also a latest reports and assessments webpage on our site, which contains newly released documents, specifically around great literature from authoritative food safety organizations. So this includes scientific reviews and recent findings, guidance documents, action plans, and/or science blueprints. Next slide. The FSRIO Food Safety Topics webpage is one that I just want to spend a little more time on this morning. This is a resource that provides information across 14 key topic areas. They range from AMR to bacterial pathogens, food processing and technology, emerging topics, food safety data, and of course, the Food Safety Modernization Act. The Food Safety Modernization Act webpage encompasses access to information about what's new and those things that are relevant to FSMA. So what is new around FSMA? As many of you may know, the FDA publishes guidance documents now on a routine basis, and we like to make sure that we're tracking those. In addition, you can find additional information on this site around the produce safety rule and the preventive controls for human foods rule. So there is specific information that's targeted to each of those pieces of the legislation. Okay. Okay, so I now, because I'm short on time, I want to remind everyone to go to our website, to go to www.nal.usda.gov/FSRIO. Please go to the food safety topics link, and you can find all of the information you need around FSMA.
Thanks, Duana. And just as an aside, Duana did prepare some extra slides for this portion, and they are up on the Wikipedia page for today's event if you want to check those out. And later in the day when we have our question and answer session, we can cover those a little more in depth, or if you have questions, hopefully Duana will be able to come back and she can answer those in regards to that. And thank you for your time, Duana. We really appreciate it. Next up, we have Dr. James Lindsay. He's the Senior National Program Leader for Food Safety at the USDA Agricultural Research Service, or ARS, where he oversees and coordinates the agency's national and international food safety research projects, and advises and reviews various international entities and research programs on food safety. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Lindsay.
Oh, thank you. You can hear me all okay?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Okay, I'm sorry I had to join you late. I was on another call and I have to leave as soon as I'm done. We got hit with a new budget initiative about 40 minutes ago, so it's been a frantic day. Okay, so this is my first slide. This is just a cover slide. Next, please. Okay, so every 5 years, the Food Safety Program, as with all of the other national programs, have to develop and implement a 5-year action plan. And this is the National Food Safety Vision and Mission Statements that are available, that are public and are on the web, that describe not only the program, but where we wish to go. So these are general topics. Next, please. Now, the program in of itself is divided into one single component, which is food safety contaminants. But we have a series of what we call problem statements. And so the 7 problem statements go from basically the first one, which is epidemiology, movement and structure of microbial populations, so epidemiology, through the systems, then through detection of pathogens, toxins, residues, things like that. Then through mechanisms of intervention, how do you implement control strategies? We have a large program on predictive microbiology, and then we have, as was mentioned for Food Safety Research Information Office, a program on antimicrobial resistance. Next, please. So all of these subtopics come under the general food safety goal. And this is what is important about this is, and they're in red. Collaboration. We work with regulatory agencies, industry, academia, a lot of stakeholders and partners to conduct research. We don't do any regulatory issues. We have no regulatory authority. We provide information to the regulatory agencies per se for their implementation to assess, control, and eliminate various contaminants, and they include bacteria, viruses, parasites, toxins, you name it. If you can think of anything in food microbiology, we generally do it. Now, the issue about our research is it's technology driven. This is really critical. We don't necessarily just do basic blue sky research. The research that we do is a mixture of basic and applied. It needs to be utilized, so our accomplishments must have impact, and they must have impact both at the national and international level. The simple reason is the food safety is not just a national issue, it's a global issue. Next, please. And to show how our collaborations work, you'll see on the left-hand side, we work with a variety of agencies, USDA, within USDA. Obviously, we work with the FDA, CDC, and with the military, Department of Homeland Security. We work with over 60 different countries with regarding our research, and we work with such other agencies, international agencies, as the UK Food Standards Agency, the European Food Standards Agency, SHAGAS, which is the research agency for Ireland, and then, of course, a whole variety of different industry organizations, and, of course, with academia. The critical thing is we don't just do it on our own. If you don't collaborate, you can't get research done. It's as simple as that. Next, please. So the program has various locations, about 15 of them, and they are scattered across the United States. And it may seem a little strange that we have them scattered, but our research is focused so that we can address issues for industry that have a specific location. For example, we do most of our produce research either in Maryland or in California. California makes sense because 70% of the produce associated that's produced for the United States actually is grown in California. We do most of our interventions work where most food production is conducted, which is necessarily on the East Coast. We do poultry research in Virginia, in Maryland, and in Georgia. As you might expect, most of the poultry that's produced in the United States is actually grown and processed over here. Next, please. Okay, so for those of you who are involved in Wikipedia, if you need background regarding where all of our research is formulated, how it's structured within the agency and the department. So our research falls under a variety of different goals. Within the department, it's part of a strategic goal 7, which will go through 2022. Within REE, which is our sub-agency within the department, it's under goal 5. It's within our ARS strategic plan, which again goes through 2022. But our action plan is slightly out of sync, but because that goes through 2025. So all of those web pages are available for you if you wish to put them in your documents. Okay, next please. Okay, now an example of the types of things that we have on our website, and this is through the Office of National Programs, and I'm one of the national program leaders for food safety. And so this is the website for it. Now, we had recently our 5-year retrospective review. Every program goes through a review, which is done not only nationally and internationally. And we develop a whole series of documents regarding this. This is one of the documents that we prepared for our last action plan, which was from 2016 through 2020. This is available on our website, which is also available on the Food Safety Research Information Office website. And so these are public documents after they have been reviewed, and they show you or will tell you what work we have done, the accomplishments that have been gained from that research, and what the impact has been. Now, one of the other critical resources for the food safety program, and this is Dewana has mentioned this, is the Food Safety Research Information Office, which is part of our national program. That was developed over 20 years ago and has been a really valuable resource. In fact, it's a resource that I use on a daily basis. And one of the critical issues for me, besides articulating what is available worldwide, is the publication the publications that are available on a daily basis. I use that because it's the only resource that is available that I can send out documents to scientists, not only within the program, but internationally on material that has not necessarily been made available to the rest of the world. So for me, the Food Safety Research Information Office is a critical part of the program. Okay, next please. Okay, now with regard to FSMA, which I gather what you're really interested in, is that within FSMA, the produce safety rule, although FSMA is very broad, the produce safety rule is the critical issue for us. And we have established a whole series of agreements with the FDA regarding this. And what we have done is that we conduct research on behalf of the FDA. They don't necessarily have the capabilities to do this, but they are happy and willing to provide us material and in some cases funding in order for us to conduct research on their behalf. Now, that research has to be integrated within the research that we do. We don't do fee-for-service research. If we do research that is associated with the topics that they require, that works out for us. So next, please. Okay, so these are the sorts of things that we look at. Pathogen introduction into the environment and in and on produce. So you see a whole variety of different subtopics there, from prevalence in the environment to looking at transference, soil amendments, which are manure, and of course water and farm animals. And the produce work that is done in California is done in the Food Produce Safety and Microbiology Research Unit, which is based in Albany, California. Next. Okay, so an example of the type of research that we have done for the FDA under FSMA. As I mentioned, most of the produce, 70% of the produce that is produced in the United States is produced in the Salinas Valley. So we did a study, a 5-year prevalence data study for looking at enteric pathogens. These are the pathogens that generally cause foodborne illness, the sort of E. coli. So as a result of this, we developed a predictive geospatial risk assessment model, which the FDA uses for looking at how contamination occurs. So the prevalence of this enteric pathogen data enable the generation of time-dependent maps that the FDA uses and can implement with the growers in the region. So what it gives them by looking at the prevalence data, they can look at hotspots where the risks are associated with this growing region. So this, as I mentioned, this was 5 years of hard data. It actually took 7 years because it took a long time to actually look at the tens of thousands of data points that we got and actually develop a risk assessment model. And there is the paper at the bottom, which is associated with this work. Next. Now, the Beltsville location, which is here in Maryland, it's the world's largest agriculture research complex. This is where most of our work is done on a variety of different topics related to produce. So we look at the development of amendments, the use of amendments, we look at water, we look at the growth of pathogens and interventions per se. Next. Okay, so some examples. We looked at the use of untreated biological soil amendments of animal origin. This is a critical issue under FSMA. And what we found was we looked at the determination of the appropriate time interval between manure application, whether or not it could be raw manure, whether it has to be 90 days, 120 days, where the manure comes from, if you use cattle manure, whether you use poultry, whether you use mixture of something, depends. So what we did, or the outcome of this, was to provide farmers with a specific factor that affects and promotes pathogen survival. So that is that we could tell the FDA, and which provided them with 2 large multi-year data sets for developing a model. That is, from this data, it was determined that a certain amount of time was required for the manure to sit before it is actually applied on produce. That's a critical issue because there are very specific time periods that are required for conventional and versus organic application of manures for produce production. And there are 3 references at the bottom for that. Next, please. Regarding water, obviously water is a potential source of or route of contamination relevant to produce production, particularly pre-harvest. And we collaborated through a project called Conserve, which was done with the University of Maryland at the Eastern Shore. And we looked at E. coli levels in surface waters, E. coli being a pathogen, but also a monitor of contamination within water supply. And this was used to apply for proposed standards on bacterial die-off, because there is the regulation that is used for produce production is based upon data from another agency that is relative to contamination of water for swimming. That's not appropriate. So what we needed to do is, what are the levels that actually are required or needed for water? What is the maximum level of contamination that can be in water that can be applied for produce production? And there are 4 different references relative to this work. This is very new. This is only in the last year or so. Okay, next. Okay, now obviously it's very difficult to monitor contamination in water. So what we developed was UAV. This is an unmanned aerial vehicle. And we also use drones and hyperspectral imaging to quantify. Now you imagine that a farmer would use, say, water in a lake to water his crops. He has no idea what the contamination is within that lake or within that water supply. So what we did is we developed technologies that could actually evaluate the contamination within that water using applied vehicles, drone hyperspectral technology. And based upon this data, we could develop transport modeling capabilities. This is a microbial index to determine the level of pathogens. So this is something, again, very, very new. This is only in the last year or so, and we will continue this work on. But it's a means, and if you go to the next slide, please, I'll show you exactly how this works. Okay, so this is, you'll see on the left-hand side, an example. Actually, this is a real example of a pond that is used for produce production. And you'll see it's, I know it's a little difficult, but you will see a drone above the water. And what it's doing is it's actually taking images of to determine the level of contamination in that water. Below that, there is an unmanned vehicle which will actually be able to go down based upon the drone technology and the results that we get from that drone. It will go down and automatically take samples anywhere down to about 60 feet of water and then bring that back so we can do analysis, actual analysis in the lab. And on the right-hand side, you will see how we could do this for a stream. Samples would be taken in various locations on a river or a tributary. All that is put within a data model, which is then available to the farmer. This is a very simple technology. It may seem very, very expensive, but it's actually not. The cost for doing this drones is rather cheap. It's just a few $100s. The unmanned vehicle was only a few $1,000s. But this is the technology of the future that we developed for the FDA and for other related agencies. And you can see at the very bottom there is a FedTech magazine, and there is a video on how this actually works. This was developed by a really brilliant mathematician by the name of Jakub Paczewski, who actually works for us at ARS. Okay, next. Now, that's all very well for pre-harvest. We also do work on post-harvest, and we did work on, okay, you harvest the produce, you need to wash the pathogens off. So we developed different technologies that were used by the FDA to develop the FSMA rule guidance specifically for the guide to minimize food safety hazards in fresh cut produce. So there's the docket and the references that we the research that we did that we used to develop those rules. And the second part, in addition to the above control, we did temperature controls for food safety, which was used in the sanitary transportation. And there are the two references of the research that we did that provided that information to the FDA. And I think the next one is the last slide. Please, yes. Okay, so this is work that was actually done out at Clay Center, Nebraska. And the reason it was done at Clay Center is that this is the only location that we have where we can have access to tens of thousands of animals. There's no point in doing this in a small facility. It actually has to be done in a real life situation. And what we were trying to determine was if you have a feedlot of cattle, and this location in Nebraska is near Colorado, where they have millions of animals. What we wanted to know is that if you have these cattle, obviously they express feces. If they produce dust, which is obviously they do, how far will the dust go that may have pathogens attached to it? So we needed to know, okay, if you have cattle that are grazing, how far away from those cattle can you actually grow produce? And the research that we did showed that the regulations that were currently available were all wrong. That initially it was 400 feet from the edge of the crop to the animals. That, in point of fact, was completely wrong. You needed to be at least a mile away. So all of this information, which has now been published and is now used, and we're particularly associated what they call the Leafy Green Management Association, which is in California, that they use this information to implement the results of those. So if you have, say, dairy farms in California, you can't grow produce within a mile of any of the locations where you have dairy. So that's the last slide. What I was trying to tell you in all of this is that the research that we do has a direct application to FSMA. It may seem that it takes a long time to do this, but the point being is that if we provide information, incorrect information to the FDA, and they make rules or guidance based upon incomplete data or wrong data, obviously this affects consumers, and this is the one thing that we certainly don't want to. We need to be absolutely sure about the material and the information that we supply to our regulatory partners, that it indeed is correct. Okay, if you have any questions, I can stay on for a few more minutes. Hello?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question, or you can put it in the chat. Dr. Lindsay, are you able to see the chat?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I hope that's the sort of information that you needed. If it's not, you need to let me know.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. That was actually really great and gave me a lot of ideas of things that we maybe don't have on the list today.
Okay, so there was a question. Did you say the drones can take water samples physically? No, they actually, no, they observe the water. We are developing technology whereby the drones can, the aerial drones can actually take samples. That's a difficult situation, and we were working on that over the next few years. What will happen is that the drones themselves will relay the information to the unmanned vehicle within that's on the lake, and they can go down and take the sample themselves. So the two are linked. We're very fortunate in the development of the drone technology in that we developed them, the drones, with our collaborators in South Korea. So we have companies such as LG who have given us their sensing technology. We're also very fortunate at Beltsville. We have a group, a sensing technology group, that is part of the food safety program that develops really sophisticated sensing technologies, not only for industry, but we do it for the military as well. These are things that are really, if you knew about them, a lot of them are still confidential. If you knew about them, it's very gee whiz. It really is. We develop technologies for produce production whereby we could actually detect contamination on poultry as it went through a processing line. And the technology is so good that we can actually determine pathogens, contamination on poultry that's going past 3 per second. And this technology has now been implemented, particularly in South Korea. We work with companies in South Korea.
Will that technology be coming to the United States?
Yes, it's already available in the United States. It was first available in the United States. Okay. The real problem that we have in the United States is that the technology is really good for birds of a certain size, but the birds that are grown, this is poultry that's grown in the South, are slightly different from those that is grown in the North. So there needs to be some changes in how the poultry is actually put onto the processing line. The actual hinges where the bird is attached have to be slightly different. But yes, it's available in the United States. In fact, it was first tested in the United States in Pennsylvania. What the other issue that we have is that the technology is so good that there are concerns as to whether or not people will lose their jobs. That's always an issue. Because if you implement the technology, do you really need so many inspectors? That's something that we've had to deal with the regulatory agencies. Anything else? As I say, if you need any other information, we're always happy to provide it. And certainly the videos, if you wish to contact Jakob Picheski, please do so as well. I gather he has some new videos on how this works. It's really very, very, very interesting.
Does he have them up on YouTube? I know USD
I believe
has a
he
YouTube.
does.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
Great.
How does microbial index summarize many different types of microbes? It does not. What we do is it's looking for specific levels of contamination, and then we can only take samples. If we could, and this is also something that we could work on, we're looking to try and see whether or not certain pathogens actually emit or have different signals. It's a type of sensing technology. We work with Purdue University. They have a group of scientists who work on development of technologies. There's different patterns. How can I put it? Each pathogen will actually exhibit a different pattern of growth. How can you determine that different pattern of growth? That's a critical issue. Okay.
Looks like one more came in.
Sure. I haven't seen it as yet.
Oh, let's see. Oh, never mind.
I think we're good.
Yep, I think we're good. Thank you so much, Dr. Lindsay. That was
you're most welcome.
really great.
I'm
really
sorry
appreciate
I can't. I'm sorry I can't stay on today. But yeah, all this, as I mentioned to you, this is it's just a busy time of year. And what is happening with us is, and for the people in the Wikipedia, we will be able to provide information on each of the projects as soon as the OSCAR review process. This is an external review process of all the projects. It's done independent to within program staff. So it's an independent office. All this information on the projects will be made available as soon as the review process is finished, which I think should be in about 2 months. Okay, so we can provide you all of that material as well. Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you so
very
much. Oh, you're most welcome. You take care.
You
Okay.
too. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye.
USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender.